Welcome to A Prosecco, the podcast that raises a glass to moms who are transitioning from empty nester into the next beautiful phase of life as a free bird. I'm your host, Berni Slowey. I'm a mother of two sons who have grown and flown, and I'm also a former corporate executive, filmmaker, writer, speaker, and entrepreneur who has helped women transfer into their authentic selves to uncork their infinite sparkling possibilities. So whether you're sipping a Prosecco or your favorite beverage of choice, join me as we pop open today's message in a bottle. Hello, and welcome to A Prosecco, where we talk about empty nest syndrome and the mentality of a free bird. And today, we're going to see what the message in the bottle is, because I know I probably could drink the whole bottle with today's topic. And I'm really missing my friends right now because of it. I'm also missing my mom and my grandmother because these were not things that we talked about. So the message in the bottle with that lovely pop sound as I pour, we're going to be talking about empty nest syndrome and menopause. We already know that empty nest syndrome can be an emotional wave of anxiety, distress. Even though we're not alone, it just feels that way because we've been nurturing and paying attention so much to our children's lives as much as any mother would, right? But then on top of it, we have the physical and the life-changing roles of not just becoming an empty nester, but we go into menopause as our bodies change and start to feel all these other things, not just the feelings inside, the emotions of our broken heart maybe, but the anticipation of our kids leaving. And then whammo, I started to feel some changes physically. And I know I was perimenopausal in my early 40s to probably just a couple of years ago, where I noticed even more changes. So as I'm navigating the big changes of like a life-changing move, and then also having the kids in separate states, they're not together. I went to the doctor's office because I wanted to, it had been a while actually, due to COVID, that we weren't getting our doctor's appointments as regularly. The mammogram, though, you should always get a mammogram every year. That I had a feeling that menopause had set in. The lack of sleep. I was waking up at 3 to 5 in the morning every day or every night. And then I could tell that the night sweats, I'd be waking up in the middle of the night and just hot, and I'd kick off the covers. But then I'm also pulling them back on. And I haven't had the hot flashes yet, knock on wood. And hopefully I don't experience that. I've heard like the waking up in a or a pool of sweat and brain fog like I'm having right now, trying to get through this episode about empty nest syndrome and menopause. Okay, so where was I? The other symptoms of irritability, anxiety, already coupled, right, on top of the kids leaving, and depression, the night sweats, the nails changing, dry, itchy skin, hair loss. My hair was thinning out, the dizziness, migraines. Let's see, I could name I'm actually going to find some kind of image to put up here so that you can see that all those symptoms, coupled with the major shift in the family dynamics, and it's a perfect storm. So how are we going to navigate through these major physical, psychological, emotional changes? And the way that I can best put it is that to have a toolbox of real self-care that allows you to really look inside and determine what are some of these feelings that are coming to the surface, and even with the changes, I wish I would have been able to talk to my mom about this. She was 52 when she had a stroke. That's how old I am now. And when she passed away at 62 in 2012, it's not stuff that we talked about. I mean, even when I had my period, my mom was not somebody who was going to share with me about, what to expect and how to handle it and, pads versus tampons. Thank God for Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume, and a way to be able to connect with my friends and ask them. And remember, it was like, I can't believe that Michelle got her period before me. I mean, those were the days where those problems seem so minor. But think back, I mean, if we're looking at all these cycles that we have, where we become a woman and now we no longer have the monthly visit. So navigating through those feelings and symptoms, how best to reach in that toolbox. So what I have found first and foremost is if I start to just ground myself with meditation. And you can do that in any way, whether it's the traditional, you want to cross your legs and close your eyes and sit up and just go in nature. That is one of the best ways, honestly, so that you don't have any distraction. And so it's like you become this channel for just not having to think and allowing for your brain just to receive and get grounded and centered. Another way to do that, I think, is through yoga. I love yoga because I feel that it's a movement of meditation. And afterward, I always feel like, I just gave myself a really big hug. But yoga is so good for your parasympathetic system. And journaling, writing all of your thoughts down to be able to recall the things that may have popped up that you didn't even expect to surface with these issues that maybe really are tied back to childhood unresolved trauma, perhaps. I know that was a big thing for me. So after like going through the whole finding out about menopause and that I am now on human replacement therapy or human, once I found out that I am in menopause, I am now also on hormone replacement therapy. So I use a cream. I have no idea. It's still new. I have no idea if it's working. I'll report back. But it's just one more thing that, we as women also, the big question about when to go gray and when is the right time to not get coloring anymore. We do so much to be able to take care of ourselves in that way. And, but are we really taking care of our needs from the emotional standpoint? So, as I think it's important to definitely take care of yourself with a good mani-pedi. You can never go wrong with a good mani-pedi because I totally see that my nails have changed, but when you can have the hour to sit back and I put my earphones in, I'll give a nod about the colors for my toes. It looks great. And, even being with girlfriends and having the camaraderie to be able to connect about whatever the day's issues or however you're feeling, that is such another important element is being able to have your friends and talk through this. If you don't have your mom, if you don't have an older sibling, or your grandparents are gone, which most of us at my age, my grandparents were gone years ago. Cheers to grandma and grandpa. And a toast to mom, because I really wish I would have had the opportunity to talk with her about what symptoms that she had, and so that I would have known ahead of time versus guessing and having the blood test come back, confirming it. But the hormonal changes, which really is about the loss of estrogen and, so the replacement of it, how else can we fill that void of this major life change. And identity and purpose, I think, become on the forefront about with regardless of what is happening. It is a great time to put that energy into identifying who you really want to grow into. And you're an amazing person already. Remember, as moms, we really identified with our children's lives and put so much energy into their world, right? And so, why we're feeling the empty nest syndrome is that feeling of loss. And that transition being very difficult is healthy to not only have the physical, um, centering and grounding, but then the mental, or what are we doing for psychologically getting into a place of feeling solid. And that is a process in itself because in one of the episodes when I talk about the stages and phases and really diving into the psychological aspect of it, that how does menopause play into it? Because if I'm having brain fog, that's a whole nother, amp that up for another issue of already having this feeling of like, if I can't remember where I put my keys and just feeling all out of sorts, it's tough. It's not easy. I'm going to have an expert therapist come on the show and talk more in depth about that, the psychological aspect of it. So I want to just touch on it in this episode, how the psychological, again, if you really can write down all of the emotions, whatever your thoughts are, and that being a resource of sorts to be able to go back and reread, okay, is there something that is tied back to an unresolved issue? So one of the things I've been doing is working with a therapist. 2023 for me was really about project healing. There had been not just the empty nest syndrome, but I think once making a big move, and I left a lot of really good friends and an amazing community and network of friendships that were created over nearly 40 years. And coming to a new place where I have also met some amazing women where I am now. There just wasn't the same kind of where we started our Friday afternoon clubs with Prosecco to engage in those conversations. I really want to. And, I'm actually, this episode is really my, I guess, introduction to opening that dialogue on the regular because I just don't think that we talk about it enough. And so as I'm having to, my poor husband probably is like, oh my God, can we just have like a special pill or something? And I'm not a big pill popper because I just don't believe that that's going to solve the root issue, right? It's a nice Band-Aid. And I think that I'm not docking anything about prescriptions. If you need them, take them. All I'm saying is that, is there something deeper to go dive into as a result of the paradox of, with the life change of our kids and then now our physical bodies and questioning ourselves as far as all these changes doesn't make us any less of a woman. If anything, it is a celebration. It's like a rite of passage. I grew up not really having a rite of passage. As I explained, it wasn't like this big ceremony after I had my period for the first time. It was, you don't discuss it really, unless you're with your doctor. And, I was on birth control pills early, not because I was sexually active. Rather, it was because my periods were so long. They were actually 2 weeks long and very heavy. And so I was put on birth control pills to regulate it. So things that we do to our bodies as women. And I really feel that when I did want to start a family with my husband, the first time I got pregnant, it took months. I want to say it was like almost a year to get pregnant. And I always thought back to is because I had been on birth control pills for so long, So, as a woman, we're really responsible or taking the responsibility of ensuring that until we're ready to have babies, that we're hormonally jacked up, jacking our bodies out of, normal cycles. And that has an impact on us so much so that I'm surprised that there isn't more discussion around, is this a societal value that we just need to look at? I'm not saying one way or another. I think it's something to give women a platform to understand what we started changing long ago. So whether or not you were 15 like I was on birth control, but at whatever time, then did you want to, have anything as far as a relationship? Whose responsibility is it? Because at the end of the day, we end up having the babies and the connection um, for so many of us, where I've heard, people having to make a really difficult decision about whether or not have an abortion or to decide to go ahead and have a baby and, what kind of life they would have had if they would have made a different choice. I think that they would have said, absolutely, I'm so glad I kept my baby. And whether they gave the baby up for adoption to gift another family, these are all like things that to celebrate the femininity, the body, the woman's body is so incredible and smart. And to be able to grow something inside of us and those who, we, even if, when your kids are gone and how many of us still want to have a pet? It's the nurturing side of us who wants to be able to have camaraderie and, somebody who, as a partner, is going to really understand what we're as women going through right now. And menopause is not something that a lot of men want to talk about. I can guarantee you, my husband isn't like, okay, tell me about how you're feeling today. Or, I know that wasn't probably the real Bernie is probably in there somewhere today. It's just that menopause is taking over and I'm just going to show patience. How often does that happen? But and then if it does, it's pretty amazing. All I can tell you is that with just take time to celebrate your body as a woman with menopause, all those changes. Remind yourself that you're magnificent. So along with, okay, so the meditation and yoga, journaling, are you also taking time to find new activities, whether it's like volunteering for an organization or, are you looking at shifting gears in a career? I was told that when you leave a career and you take a step back from your career and decide to come back into the fold in a professional manner, whether you're getting a job 9 to 5 or you're starting a business or self-employed or whatever, that it's like having an encore career. So think of this as you're coming back into this new woman that has really endured so much, right? So, as the psychological element of like being able to accept yourself and be aware and open to like what everything is happening to us right now, but also to then from the heart with the emotions, like be gentle with yourself because I I'm a crier. I definitely wear my emotions on my sleeve and I think that's healthy. I think trying to hold in the tears isn't healthy for your body. I think it's definitely good and healthy to release it. And I think down the road, if you don't release it, that's where we really experience dis-ease, the disease, dis-ease. of not allowing our body, which speaks to us and has been so wonderful to us to give us children, that it's smart. The body is so smart. So listen to what is happening also with your heart. The best thing I think is always to connect with your kids in a way that is going to still allow them to be who they are and touch base with them. But they're excited about their new beginning, and allow them to call you, because mom's got a new agenda. Mom is number one right now. And so don't be apologetic to that. It's just like why you're told to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping others. It's because then we are able to be that best person, to be able to have that self-love. You think about, like, when you say I love you to anyone, do you ever say that to yourself? I don't say that to myself enough. I don't think anybody really. I mean, if you do, then you've got a really good regimen. Being able to, and if you can do that confidently, I think that's incredible, because that is another project for me, to be able to actually feel that and say that to myself without even flinching, to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say that. That you'd want your kids to be able to do that. So who else to best model it except from us? So with the body, with the mind, and the heart, all comes together on a spiritual connection, so that, and I'm not talking religion, I'm talking about being aware of what it means to evolve. Because once we emerge from this syndrome, and it's healthy to get through it, and also identify how those emotional challenges are really good for us for growth. It's okay to be able to tell somebody that, I'm going to just hermit for a little bit. Okay, hermit, give it a day, maybe two, do a weekend, and, consider it like a personal retreat where you just step back, because sometimes slowing down is what helps you move forward even faster. And when I was doing retreats, being able to have the opportunity to treat yourself, so that whatever your regimen might be, and I'm going to be thinking about how to put together a list of ideas for home retreats, but just first and foremost, like, clear space for yourself that is completely for you. And whether you have to go somewhere to do that, whether it's the spa, go to a getaway weekend, and with your girlfriends, even better, right? So that you have an opportunity to really collect yourself in a way that's an opportunity to just feel and unapologetically take care of yourself. And with that self love of nurturing, and also just really take the time to write, journal. And then when you absolutely can, go out with your girlfriends, have a night out, have some Prosecco, whatever your beverage of choice. It's a way to, I do feel like this is truth serum. And with the conversations I would, if I had and this is why I wanted in a Prosecco to be able to have some of these heartfelt conversations, as though you're in the living room here with me, and to have the banter of, like, are you kidding me? Yes. And wait until you hear this, or you're not even going to believe this. So please add comments to, are you feeling the same way? What are you able to share about how you're handling the menopause changes, along with being able to, how do you manage being an empty nester and menopause, both? And on top of that, how are things going in your relationships? So not just a relationship with your children and your spouse, your friends, your family. I think that when we focus on service to others, however that might present itself, so just lending a hand to a friend or volunteering at a community service, I think it just naturally helps us feel better because of the nurturing tendencies that moms have. To see that, if it can put a smile on somebody's face. I got to tell you this. Okay, hang on. On the way to the studio, traffic was nuts. And of course, I always get stressed because I don't want to be late. And uh, we're in a community where there's snowbirds. So as the winter months come, the traffic gets a lot worse. And so I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, I just need to get through this traffic. Oh, great. We're sitting through another light. There was somebody that was coming through the cars to collect for a church, and all the stress and how I'm like, oh, great, traffic. I did have $1 in my console and I gave it to him, and he just said the nicest thing. And it was so simple, just a simple little act of service. And it shifted everything about my mood. And so, I mean, because I get stressed out about like, I always want to have the best, recording of a show for you. And so already stressed about the traffic and, how am I going to do today in the show, which, I'm telling you, brain fog. So bear with me. The way that that gentleman smiled at me and just said thank you made a world of difference. So being of service, I think, just shifts so much energetically at our cells, and those are the kinds of things that are going to be so helpful for your parasympathetic system. Just calming yourself. And Prosecco always helps. And so do some really good girlfriends and a night out. So if you're married, it'll be interesting to see if I still remain married after this menopause thing. But have have some patience for yourself and acknowledge all the amazing things that you've already done. And I'm not talking about a checklist. And believe me, I am all about checklists of like, okay, did I accomplish this today? And did I accomplish this out in the world? I think one of the biggest aha moments for me is when I decided that sometimes we do things to prepare, we do all the right things, and we get to a comfort level with ourselves at some point where we can say, you know what, I trained and trained and trained to reach that summit, but I know I can reach it. I just don't have to do it. So think of like this life change with menopause, with the empty nesting. Funnel that energy, but full of love for yourself so that can be poured out into the world. So, whatever it is that you want to do for your life purpose, which I think it'll give you much more clarity when you do that inner work to be able to get yourself out there and then start a podcast and then start talking about things that I think are so relevant. And we need more women's voices right now. I think podcasts are so dominated by men. I believe that I think it's 1 out of 10 women for each podcast. So maybe this is a little bit of re-inspirement as far as, how do you want to share your story? And please do start with a comment and just let me know. How are you feeling? And what are you doing for your own personal solutions of self-care? But first and foremost, it's a toast to you for being you, because you don't have to be doing anything as long as you are being authentic, you are being love, you are loving to yourself so that you can be love for the world. and all those around you. Cheers to you. Until next time. If you enjoyed this episode of A Prosecco, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate and review the show, and please do comment and share ideas for topics that are important to you. A friend who cares is a friend who shares. Here's a toast to you on your re-inspirement journey. Cheers.